Okay, thank you for your patience. So before we get started, I want to tell y'all something about the school counselors in the great state of South Carolina. Y'all are completely amazing and awesome and wonderful. You already know that. I hope you already know that. I'm certainly not the first person that has told you that this year. I certainly hope not. But when I asked, hey, would some of y'all like to join some kind of discussion about what the student growth goal is? Almost 400 of you said yes. So I want to thank you for your interest in kind of talking through what this is today. Because of that, I'm expecting around 100 participants this morning. So if you would please mute yourself and keep yourself muted during the presentation. If you have questions, please put those questions in the chat. I cannot see the chat while I'm presenting, but I promise at the end, we will go back and look through the chat. And if you have any questions, I will try to answer them at that point. So just put questions in the chat when you have them. We will go back and be able to look at those. And also, as a reminder, I'm recording the session. Hopefully this will be the session that makes it onto the Padlet later on today. So before we get started and jump right into that student growth goal, I want to share resources because I will always do this every time I have an audience with you. If you have not already bookmarked this Padlet, please do so. I emailed this earlier with the invitation to this meeting. Also, there's a QR code if you want to take a picture super quick with your phone. Just go ahead and bookmark that Padlet. That will have reference resources, stuff for you that I will be putting up just in one central location. There's a lot of different information on it that covers a lot of different things. So if you haven't bookmarked the Padlet, please do that. Also, if you haven't joined the listserv, please consider joining the listserv. Again, I have a QR code for you or a direct link. I will be emailing you the handouts from this presentation when it's concluded. So you'll have access to all of this later as well. If you haven't signed up for the listserv, this is how I can push out information to the school counselors and career specialists in the state. This is the best way I have to push information out. And if you're not on it, I don't want you to miss anything. So if you are not on the listserv, please be sure someone at your school is. Again, please, I promise you will not get spammed with stuff because I don't have time for that and I know y'all don't. So please sign up for the listserv. Now, before we get into the specifics of this student growth goal, again, I know some more of you have hopped on the chat. Have hopped on the presentation. Please keep yourself muted. And if you have questions along the way, put your questions in the chat. I will be looking at that chat at the very, very end and answering all your questions there. Okay. Before we talk about the student growth goal, it's important to know why it's important to you. And to start our discussion, we have to start with the new ADEPT for school counselors. There is a new ADEPT system for school counselors that is been piloted last year. It is now in effect for this school year. This is a picture of what the new guidelines look like. They are on our Padlet. Also on our Padlet are some links to some great resources to support the new ADEPT system for school counselors. Y'all, it has been a long time since our evaluation system has been looked at and updated. So I'm excited about this. It's kind of gone more from an evaluative instrument to more of a support, a professional development. It's also looking at what we actually do as school counselors. So I'm excited about that as well. The biggest thing I'm most excited about is it now directly aligns with the South Carolina School Counseling and Career Guidance Model, which is also on the Padlet. So just by the way, but let me pause right here and say, this is not adept training. This is not adept training. All of this information that's on the Padlet, I took straight from the Department of Ed website. Okay, so if you have questions about adept, I want you to contact the Office of Educator Effectiveness and Leadership Development. Specifically, Beverly, who is wonderful, and she will answer any questions that you have about adept. Today, what we're going to do is talk about what the student growth goal is. And that's a part of that system. This is why it exists now in this huge manner. So that's what our intent is today, is just to look at the student growth goal. If you have questions, specific questions about adept, here is your contact. Again, you'll get this later when I send the handouts from the presentation. So again, this is not adept training. I am not an adept trainer. Our discussion of that was just to offer you some context and just demonstrate why this is important. The intention for this conversation today is just to help you understand the student growth goal. We also call it the SGG, and offer some suggestions on how to create one. Okay. So let's get started. All school counselors must create a student growth goal. No matter where you are in your evaluation process, you need to start and develop a student growth goal. It's required every year, no matter what evaluation you're on. This student growth goal allows you to connect your professional goals to a specific need of your school and of your students. It reflects how you collect and use the data to identify a particular need for your students or for a target group and write a goal that aligns not only to that particular needs, but how it aligns within the school counseling program. Okay, and this is what the template looks like for your student growth goal. Now, I don't expect you to be able to read all that, but this template is available on the Padlet. It's available under program components. Also under program components are a lot of other templates that you may find useful for your work as a school counselor. Remember, the student growth goal as it pertains to your evaluation and adept, all of that is housed in SE Leads. Okay, what's on the Padlet is just there for you to use as resources. Okay, but all the official stuff, SE Leads. Okay, so these are the major components of the student growth goal. And we're going to walk through each one of these individually, just to kind of give you an idea of what it is looking at. Okay, so the first thing you do is you talk about the rationale for creating the particular goal that you have on your student growth goal. So you're going to identify the baseline data that serves as a basis for the student growth goal. Okay, that data can be achievement, attendance, and behavior. Big three from ASCA, the American School Counselor Association, or it can be anything. Okay, but you have to prove why the goal that you've created is relevant to your school and your students, and what data you used to determine the relevance. So you got to talk about data, and don't get that glazed look in your eye when you hear me say data. Data can be fun, and it can come from lots of different places. So you need to look at your needs assessments. What did your needs assessments say? What kind of school data do you have? I know the report cards just came out last week. What's on your report card that maybe could be moved, made better, changed by something that the counseling program or the counselor can do? What's important to your principal? That's a very important piece of data, as well as what's important to your school district. What district initiatives are going on that you can partner with and help move a particular subset of students. What did your advisory board say? Okay, so there's lots of different places you can get the data that will support your student growth goal. Also on the Padlet, there is a school data summary that I lifted straight from the American School Counselor Association. Again, this is just another resource that you can use to get you thinking about what and where your data can come from. It could get you thinking about, oh, I didn't think about looking at this particular set. So this is on the Padlet again, and it's just to get you thinking about where's the data that you have that's going to support the goal that you create. Okay. The next thing is your SMART goal. I know we've been hearing about SMART goals forever. Okay, SMART goals are specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time bound. Okay, so on the Padlet, I have this little SMART goal template that has helped me when I'm creating goals. It helps keep me centered and focused on what's important. So I wanted to share this with you and kind of walk through this with you. So here is, I call it the box template. And I did not create this. I stole this. And if I could remember who I stole it from, I'd give them credit. Well, it's probably one of y'all, so thanks. But I have used this several times. So let's kind of walk through this. So by the end day, that end day needs to be the final date when your intervention is completed. A specific day. And I want you to think about this. You have to have a goal that can be measured before the end of the school year. So you can't say, or you shouldn't say, by the end of the school year, because you won't know if you've met your goal before the school year is over. You with me so far? So a final date could be by April 15th, 2022. By March 1st, 2022. But by the end date is the day that you will be able to say, I'm done with my interventions and now I can collect my data to see if I met my goal. Okay. The targeted group. Now this has to be a very specific group of students that you're working with. This is the group you're trying to make a change in whatever. And it needs to be very specific. You can't say, I'm going to work with students at my school. Well, what students at your school? It needs to be a very specific group. If you want to work with every student at your school, say, I will, all students who attend Anna Duval High School who were in attendance from this day to this day. Okay. That's a really large group. I wouldn't, you might want to really think about that. But let's kind of cull that down a little bit. Let's say that there was a group of, let's say last year, there was a group of fourth grade girls that just did not get along. And they had so many discipline referrals for fighting and classroom disruption that in your data, you saw a huge spike in discipline referrals for fourth grade girls, and it was because of fighting. Okay, so this specific targeted group could be fifth grade girls, because remember, they're now in fifth grade, we hope, who had discipline referrals for fighting during the 2020-21 school year. Okay, a very specific group. You don't have to name them. Please don't name them. But you need to be very specific. So if I read your goal, I would know exactly who you're going to be working with. Okay. The next part is, what are you trying to increase or decrease? What are you trying to make better, come down? And it says it's related to achievement, attendance, or behavior. So in this case, you're going to be describing the outcome that you want, and you've got to be very specific. And again, you've got to make it so that if I read your goal, I would know exactly what you're trying to do. So for the girls group that had that spike in discipline referrals for fighting, I am trying to decrease the total number of referrals for fighting during this school year. Okay, now remember, I can't say that. I can't say by the end of the school year, because then I won't be able to measure it before the school year's over. So I might say by the end of third quarter, and I wouldn't even say the end of third quarter. I'd go find the date of third quarter, and then on that end date, I would say by this date. Okay, so, but what I'm trying to do is reduce the total number of referrals for this group of girls. Okay. The next thing you wanted to say is about how much, what is the measure of change? And this is a number or a percent. You can't say by a lot. Well, you can, but that's not a really specific goal. It needs to be by how much. So let's say we want to decrease the girls' discipline referrals by 10%. Okay, so what was your baseline data? What did they have last year? Or identify the current data about the students. So last year, let's say the girls had 20. And so 20, we're going to decrease that by 10%. That's an 18 for those girls. So the baseline data and the target data, you're just identifying what the current data is and then what you want it to be when you're done. Okay. So I'm going to share another example, and it's going to be y'all. It's going to be my goal with y'all. So my goal was by September 10th, 2021, by Friday, my targeted group is South Carolina school counselors who attended a virtual student growth goal training session. Okay. What did I want to do? I wanted to increase your comfort level in creating a student growth goal. Hence the pretest, right? Because y'all all took it. I know most of y'all took that. Thank you, because you're going to see what I'm trying to do is I want to increase your comfort level by 20%. Okay. So you're thinking, Anna, 20%, why 20%? Why not 100%? Why not? Remember, you want it to be attainable. And I am hopeful that most of y'all were already pretty comfortable with creating a student growth goal. So I thought a 20% change would be a realistic goal. Also, when I sent out the pretest, and y'all were so amazing for taking it, this was the results. So you can see most of y'all, 40% of y'all, are right on that number 3. This was a linear scale. 1 was I don't feel comfortable at all, and 5 was I'm an expert. I can do this with my eyes closed. Okay, so most of y'all were at 3. Another reason I chose a 20% change is because it's a 5-point scale. So every point between is 20%. So if I went from a 1 to a 2, that's a 20% increase. If I went from a 2 to a 3, that's a 20% increase. I made it easy on myself. Okay. So that's my pretest. Also, to get the average or my baseline data, all I did was these were all y'all's answers. I summed up, did an average. So the average was a 2.42. I rounded that up to a 2.43. So then I just go plug that back in for my baseline data of 2.43. I wanted a 20% increase, which is a 3.43. Okay. So this is how I created my goal here. I'm hopeful that that can help you as you're going forward to create your goals there. They don't have to be terribly difficult to do. They do have to be, based in data, and it has to be a change that you can measure. Okay. So the next part is around which indicator will you focus your professional goal? Okay. Now, the student growth goal is your professional growth plan, part of your professional growth plan. So you need to be thinking of an indicator on the rubric that you want to grow that is connected to the goal. Okay. Remember, we have 12 indicators grouped into 4 broad categories or domains. Okay. All this is in the Adept for School Counselors guidelines, okay, on the Padlet, on the State Department website. Okay. Each one of these indicators has a set of descriptors. Okay. So you would pick one of these indicators. So for the, let's say for the girls group, we picked lesson planning for the girls group. So I'm in the rubric now. So my lesson planning is right there at the bottom. So I want to be sure that I'm researching, designing, delivering evidence-based structured lessons to promote student achievement pertaining to the desired national mindsets and competencies addressing students. Okay. So I'm also going to go back. The girls group could also be a direct service. You could look at direct services, but again, it's something that you want to work on professionally that will also help you achieve the goal that you have set for your students. So that is around what indicator? There you go. Okay. The next question on the SGG is the collaboration question. Who did you collaborate with about what the issue is and maybe some possible factors contributing to it? So I know you've already spoken to the teachers. I know you've already spoken to the administrators, maybe even spoken to these girls' parents. Maybe the girls seem to get in trouble in the cafeteria, so you've even talking with cafeteria staff. Maybe they all attend the same after-school program. You know, who did you collaborate with to help you see what possible issues you may have achieving your goal? Okay. The next one is lesson planning. You're going to identify 1 or 2 national mindsets and behaviors most relevant for this targeted group and goal. And then based on those, you're going to write 1 or more learning objectives the students need to learn. Okay. So never fear, ASCA is here. ASCA over the summer has renamed their mindsets and behaviors into student standards. So they're now called the ASCA student standards, which I love because administrators understand student standards. Teachers understand student standards. I understand student standards. So we now call them the student standards, not the mindsets and behaviors. Now, mindsets and behaviors are still a part of it because there's still the 36 research-based standards. They added 1. Okay. But the 2 categories are mindsets and behaviors. Okay. So again, this is on the Padlet, also on the ASCA website. You will, hopefully this will look familiar to you because this part looks very similar to what they had out before. But at the top, you'll see your mindsets. At the bottom, at the bottom, you'll see your behaviors. Now, of course, it's cut off because I wanted to make it, you know, bigger on the page. So you just go through here and you see what would match the goal that you've set for that particular group. So for our girls group, up in the mindsets, I would choose mindset 2, a sense of acceptance, respect, support, and inclusion for self and others in the school environment. I think that would work very well. And then under behaviors, under the self-management skills, there's a couple you could probably choose. I would, depending on the lessons that I was going to offer and what I was going to do, I would either choose like the self-discipline, self-control, maybe effective coping skills. I mean, you could choose any really from there. Remember, you're choosing one or two. And then for the learning objectives, this is new from ASCA as well. And I'm excited about it because you can go here and ask, it'll ask you, what are you looking for? And it can spit out for you a couple of learning objectives that have already been written and have already gone through the ASCA vetting. So they're really good learning objectives. So it looks like this. So you could actually go in and you could search by grade level. You could search by mindset, behavior. You could search by anything if you're looking for something very specific. Okay. Now, I will tell you this is new, so there's not a whole lot already there, but there are some already uploaded and ready to go. Also want to let you know that ASCA is looking for you and us and all of us to submit our learning objectives so that they can include them on the database as well. So if you're someone who can write a jam up learning objective and you're looking for some professional contributions to make, you might want to upload those to the ASCA learning objectives. Okay, so you can go here, find your learning objective, copy, paste it on your SGG. The same for the mindsets and behaviors, copy and paste it on your SGG, and you're good. Okay. The next question is planned activities, strategies, and interventions. What are you planning to do? This is where you go in and say, okay, I'm planning to offer classroom counseling lessons on this. I'm planning to do small groups on this, individual counseling with the girls who are identified. I want to do a school-wide something. This is where you actually write out what you plan to do to make sure that you can meet your goal. Okay. I would also include in here, how are you going to make sure that, how are you going to know that you're going in the right direction if you don't pause to see if they've had any discipline referrals, if that's what you're measuring by. So I put in here, I'm going to look at the 1st of October to see how the discipline referrals are going, the 1st of December to see how they're going. Just how are you going to measure it? So that's what this is asking. What specifically are you going to do to try to get you to your goal? Okay. And the last thing is the signatures. Okay. Now this is the template. You're actually going to do your signatures in SE Leads, but you can see that there's 3 sets of signatures. There is a preliminary approval conference. And y'all, that one starts, it should be starting right around now. You may have already had yours. And now I'm kind of morphing into adeptness right here, which remember, I'm not the expert in that, but for adept, you will need to have a preliminary approval conference with your administrator because they have to approve your SGG before you can get started with it. Okay. And during this approval conference, you're going to say, this is all the data I've collected to support my goal. And then this is what I'm planning to do to reach my goal. Take all that data with you. Okay. So you'll have a preliminary approval conference early first semester. Then you're going to have a preliminary evaluation conference midterm, like that, December, January. Okay. Somewhere in the mid-year. This conference is where you and your administrator get back together and you talk about how it's going. How's it going? Well, this happened and therefore I'm having trouble with this. If you need to adjust your goal at that mid evaluation conference, you can. This is a chance for you to talk, have a conversation and talk about this is going well, this is not going well, and get some direction from your administrator. Okay. And then the last final evaluation conference is at the end of year. Please know when that is for you. it's not a standard date. Your district will say by this date you need to be done. So please don't miss your date. So if your district says you have to have it all done by this particular day, you better be sure that your end date and your goal is before that, so you can measure the difference. So for that final evaluation conference, that's when you're going to sit down and talk through how it went. You'll be able to show whether you met your goal or not. And then if things went well, hooray. If things didn't go well, again, that's part of that evaluation part of it. But what I do like about this process now is that it's more of a here, let me help you along process, because you have that preliminary approval conference. That's when you talk through things and you come to a consensus on what your SGG will look like. And then that, the midterm one, this is more about, this is now more about how you did, not if you met your goal, because sometimes we don't meet our goals, but your professional growth through this. Did you do what you said you were going to do? And when you met something that you couldn't change, how did you adapt to that? How did you change that? So it's more of a kind of looking at how you go about doing the work that you do, instead of a yes no kind of thing. So again, not adept. Please always start with the folks at your school if you have questions, then your district, and then of course the State Department would be happy to answer questions. And again, I gave you the email earlier. We will, you'll get that again later. So that, y'all, is the student growth goal. Okay, so what I want to do before I go and look into the chat to see if there's any questions, I want to give you the opportunity to participate in a student growth goal community. So if you want to get together with other school counselors and talk about, hey, how's your student growth goal? Or, hey, will you read mine and give me some feedback on it? If you would put your name and your email in the chat, I will download that when we are done and share that with y'all. So if you want to just have, a group to kind of run this by to see if, to ask questions, name and email in the chat. I'd be happy to do that for you. Please, 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 I am going to send you a copy of our handouts, a copy of the names and emails that come down in the chat, and a link to take the post test. So please take 2 seconds to take that post test, because I want to see if I met my goal. Okay. And I just said that all that's going to be emailed later. And then a video of the session will be available on our Padlet soon. A lot of people were not able to get in to view this live video training. So let them know it's going to be on the Padlet. Okay. And then before I go and look at any questions, I want to tell you, please stay safe. Please stay well. And I want to thank you for taking care of the children. Thank you very much, because I'm not there to do it anymore, which makes me sad. So let me stop sharing my screen and